Hello and welcome to Intermission at Folk Night at the Registry in the afternoon. I'm Jan Vanderhorst. Now we get to spend some time with today's performer, Mark Rust. Welcome back to Kitchener, Mark.
What a pleasure to be back. I came here for the first time and this felt like home. So it's really great to be back.
And you have been here before because you have this DVD, Mark Rust, live at the Registry Theater.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we had such a good time we recorded it, and this is hot off the press, like a few days before I left on the trip. And it really captured the night of not just me, but the audience, the great audience that fills this room and participates in the show, which is what I die for. So now people can take it home, and if you're over 60 and have a DVD player, we're all set.
Excellent. Or if you have a CD player in your car, you're good to go with today's music.
I guess.
With our music.
Yeah.
In any case. Your background is very musical. Your grandmother had a nightclub called Swiss Trudy's.
Yeah.
Tell me about Swiss Trudy's.
My grandmother came to this country just before the Depression, 15-year-old girl, Ellis Island, on her own, and found it was pretty tough sledding immediately going. She found that she could earn a living by leaning on her talents as a Swiss yodeler in the Swiss Alps, which is where my family's from, and eventually wound up. She used to sing around the German nightclubs in New York City, which was a lot at that time. She sang in different languages and entertained. She was a jokester and a show person, and wound up opening a nightclub restaurant called Swiss Trudy's in Rockland County. And there was it was like a chalet-shaped place, and they served Swiss-American food. And in between, they did these skits right out of I Love Lucy. I mean, she talked about these skits, and they sounded hilarious. And my father grew up in that. He was going to school, learning to play accordion at night, and he joined her in the act. And then when us kids came along, us kids that's not Americans. And when we came along, as soon as we could sing and play something, we were on the set. Much like at Tom Chapin's family, we had a family act for many, many years.
Right.
So before I even considered doing something like this as a life experience, it was already happening as a kid growing up. Right. But yeah, what a place. Swiss Trudy's, I got the postcards. There's my dad and later Hosen with the accordions and singing. I thought, man, would I have liked to see that?
Now, and your performing career continued, not just as a singer-songwriter, but as I mentioned yesterday with Tom Chapin, you're involved in the production of Pump Boys and Dinettes. You're in the National Touring Company. Tell me about the experience of working in that kind of an environment.
Well, first of all, I have Tom to thank for that, because he was on Broadway finishing up the Broadway cast, and he told me when he left, they said, can you suggest a few people for this role? And he threw my name into the hat. So I was just this unknown folk singer starting out in the Finger Lakes area, and they literally called me and said, well, Tom Chapin says you're something, so I guess you should come down. Okay, and I'd never even heard of the show. So I went out and bought the record and listened to the tunes, and I went down and saw Tom in the show, and then auditioned for it and got the gig. And it was, for someone who, that's the kind of boost you need at some point when you're just starting out and finding your way, and suddenly you're on a rock and roll bus with Henry Gross and Nicolette Larson, and we're touring the country, one nighting right across the country. But it was just a first-class way to go, because it was the Broadway production, so you had all that support behind it. And we were playing the best theater in every city right across the U.S. And so it was not only that experience of being in a professional show and a cast, but I would go out at every place we went and be a little bit of a tour guy. And I'd just, what city am I in? Let's go out and see what there is to see here. So I spent all of my time trying to soak up, what are the locals doing? Not at the theater, not at the hotel, and try to talk to people and feel like I'm in Louisiana, now I'm in Texas, now I'm in, and what is that? And so I value that experience as much as the show, but it was certainly a boost for my career too, because you get a little attention when you do something like that. So that helped out as well.
Now tell me about getting into movies. You were in the movie The Better Angels, which is about Abraham Lincoln.
Well, in the movie. I am in the movie, yeah. This was filmed, it's a Terrence Malick produced film. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but, and it was being filmed in not far from where I live. In the Hudson Valley, there's a little ridge that goes across, settled by the Shawangunk Indians, and they call it the Shawangunks, the local call it the Gunks. They were filming on location there a lot. They had built a church, they had built Lincoln's home, and back in those times, apparently, they weren't a lot of guitars, but there were hammered dulcimers. So Jay Unger, who did the music for the Civil War series on PBS, you may know. Yep. I'm old friends with Jay, and they said, can you come in and play hammer dulcimer to my fiddle? Sure. And so that's how I got into that, and spent one full day from the crack of dawn right till the sun went down. And I was in one scene playing hammer dulcimer at a dance, and then another scene Lincoln is dancing with his mom, and I'm playing the fiddle on the hill nearby. And it was a lot of fun. Long day, long day. But I kind of got pulled in through the back door into that project. But happy to have done it.
Before we started, you mentioned that this kind of area is familiar to you because you spent a lot of time in your early career with Garnet Rogers and Scott Merritt and Fred Eaglesmith. How helpful was being with those very creative, other creative performers?
Well, that time you have to remember, I mean, I guess you were around then too,
yes.
Right? The whole music scene on every level was just, Scott and I were talking about this last night, and we said it was so optimistic, it was so hopeful. We were in our 20s and didn't know what was coming, but we knew that we loved music. This is before the internet, so people actually had to leave their homes to be entertained. So there was a lot of places to play in Southern Ontario, a lot of clubs, a lot of folk festivals, and I felt like we were this little merry band of, we were all writing songs and learning songs and singing with each other, and it seemed like we were all playing the same clubs and festivals, so we felt like a little group supporting each other in that. And so it was just it was a really happy, creative, fun time that we all look back on, very fondly.
Now, as far as the amount of touring you're doing these days, are you more selective as to how often and for how long?
You mean how long?
You go on a tour?
Oh, well, from the get-go, most performers, even in this market, will set out across the continent, across Canada, across the US, playing one-nighters, and that never appealed to me. I was sort of a homebody, and even before I was married or had any commitment to home, I had a home, then that was the most important thing in my life. So my touring, I put the touring in quotes because I would go several hundred miles and then come home. And I'd go to Toronto and play and come, I'd go to Boston and come home. And I think the home kept me centered, it kept me believing my own hype, taking myself too seriously, and I thought that home life contributed to the shows that I was putting on and the music that I was writing. And in fact, a lot of my shows now are just about the experience of growing up with music and what's that like and reflecting on that. It's not about being a musician on the road.
Right.
So I've been selective, mostly in the senses, can I get home? I don't want to leave myself traveling somewhere. And on the Pump Boys tour, the old adages of not even knowing what state you're in were true. If you just went on the tour bus into the hotel to the theater, back to the bus and the theater, you wouldn't know where you were. And I don't think that's a healthy place to be. And so I always stayed rooted by playing the shows, maybe a few days in Canada, a few days in New England, get home. Right. So that's how I've always treated my performing schedule, and still to this day. And now that I'm married and have kids, have raised a family, that served me very well, because there's a lot of musicians that I know now my age never got those roots, never had the long marriage, never raised kids, and I got to do all that and be present as a father and a husband in addition to having a music career. And those things are more important, frankly.
Right.
So.
Right. Thank you so much for your time. It's great to
Pleasure.
talk with you.
Yeah.
Now time for the second half of our concert.